Story number 1. The Girl in the Attic Window. When I was 13, my older sister Lena and I were sent to spend part of the summer with our grandmother in a tiny, fog-soaked fishing village called Whaler's Drift, nestled along the jagged coast of Nova Scotia. The place always had a strange energy, half-forgotten and weather-beaten, where the sea never truly slept, and the houses all leaned like old drunkards toward the cliffs. Our grandmother lived in an ancient, wind-battered house on the edge of town. It was 3 stories high, narrow and creaking, filled with antique clocks that ticked at irregular rhythms, and windows that moaned when the wind passed through them. But the strangest thing about the house was what lay across the road. A collapsed church, swallowed in ivy and shadows, long abandoned after a mysterious fire claimed most of the congregation in the late 1800s. People in town whispered that the church still held something unnatural. Naturally, Lena and I were warned not to go near it. So of course we went. We'd sneak out when Grandma fell asleep in her rocking chair, the hum of her record player mixing with the crashing waves outside. One evening, Lena dared me to play hide-and-seek with her and her friend Isabel, who lived a few doors down. It was Lena's idea to play inside the ruined church. It was stupid, dangerous, and the most thrilling thing I'd ever heard. The church was a crooked husk of its former self. Half the roof missing, stained glass shattered like ice across the wooden floor, and an eerie bell tower still intact, rising like a bony finger into the gray sky. While Lena and Isabel counted beside a scorched pew, I ran. I darted toward the back of the church and found a stairway that led down into the basement, where the air grew damp and cold. But it felt too obvious, too easy. So instead, I went the opposite way, up a narrow spiral staircase that led into what remained of the attic. Up there, it was hauntingly quiet, like the world had been put on mute. The attic had once been a vestry, where the choir would gather. Now it was a ghost of what it had been. Moldy robes still hung from rusted hooks, and hymn books lay melted into the corners like wax. But what caught my eye was a large wooden wardrobe pushed into the far corner, the kind that looked like it belonged in a Gothic novel. I opened it. Empty, but large enough to crouch in. It was perfect. I slipped inside and pulled the door shut, but the warped wood refused to close fully, leaving a small crack through which a single beam of moonlight filtered in from the stained glass above. My heart pounded with excitement, waiting to hear Lena call out for me. Minutes passed, then more. Then, nothing. At some point, I must have dozed off because when I woke, everything was different. It was pitch black, the kind of darkness that felt alive. The air was icy, and my knees ached from being curled up so tightly. I shifted, confused, trying to remember where I was when I heard the first sound, a soft dragging scrape. It echoed up the staircase from the church's lower level. Then footsteps, but not fast or playful like Lena's or Isabel's. These were slow, deliberate, heavy enough to make the wood groan beneath each step. I froze, pressing my back against the inside of the wardrobe. Through the tiny crack in the doors, I saw nothing, just the faint outline of the attic wall. But I could feel the presence moving. Whoever or whatever it was, they weren't just walking. They were searching. Then came a whisper. Not words, just the sound of breath brushing against ancient wood. And the smell. It hit me like a wave of rot and brine, like dead fish left to decay in the sun. My stomach turned. I covered my mouth with my hand, desperate not to gag. The footsteps climbed the final few stairs. Then they stopped, right outside the wardrobe. I held my breath, every muscle locked in panic. I counted the seconds. 5, 10, 15, silence. Then, the tiniest creak. The wardrobe door moved, just slightly, as though someone was testing it. I nearly screamed. But then came a sound that will haunt me for the rest of my life. A giggle. High-pitched, girlish, and coming from inside the wardrobe. Not beside me, not outside. Inside. I felt the breath before I heard the voice, and it whispered, "You found me." I kicked the door open and flew out like a wild animal. I didn't care if I tripped, if I broke something, if the floor gave out beneath me. I just needed to escape. I sprinted across the attic, nearly fell down the spiral stairs, and didn't stop running until I was out of the church and back across the road. The house was dark. Grandma was gone. Lena wasn't there. Instead, a small group of people stood in front of the house. Emergency lights bathed everything in red and blue. A paramedic caught me before I collapsed on the porch. Apparently, I'd been missing for nearly 6 hours. Lena and Isabel had looked for me, but when I didn't answer, they got scared and ran home. Grandma woke up hours later and called the police. The strange thing? They searched the entire church already, attic included. Said there was nothing there, not even a wardrobe. Later, As I was wrapped in a blanket in the back of the ambulance, Lena pulled me aside. She looked pale, shaken. "There's something I didn't tell them," she said. "When we were looking for you, I saw you, I swear, in the attic window." I stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You were smiling and waving," she whispered. "But your eyes were all wrong. You weren't you." I haven't gone back to Whaler's Drift since, but sometimes I dream about that wardrobe, and the girl is still hiding inside it, waiting to be found again. Please like the video, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share. Story number 2. Don't look at the window in Unit 13. It was supposed to be just another lazy Friday night in our apartment complex. A sprawling, Soviet-era concrete block on the outskirts of Warsaw where every hallway echoed and every door creaked like it had a secret to spill. My name's Nadia, and I'm 17. I live on the 6th floor of Tower B with my little brother, Emil, and our mom. We've been here since Dad left, and while the building always felt a bit off, I chalked it up to the ugly architecture and constant power cuts. The only kids close to my age in the complex were a bunch of misfits like me, Marta, 15, Olivia, 14, Bartek, 13, and Zosha, the youngest at 11, but way too brave for her own good. On weekends, we'd play a game called Shadow Rush. Think hide and seek, but in the dark. No phones, no lights, just you, the building, and your heartbeat. That night, we decided to play across Tower A, the block that had been partially condemned after a fire in one of the upper units. Most people moved out, except for a few weird loners. It was the perfect playground for our game. Bartek insisted we include Unit 13 on the 7th floor, the one everyone avoided. "It's just an empty flat," he said, "and the fire wasn't even on that side." But we all knew the stories. People said they still saw movement in the windows, sometimes a flicker of a candle, a child's face, a shadow. The flat had been vacant for years, after a woman allegedly locked herself and her daughter inside during a breakdown. Neighbors claimed they heard lullabies at 2 a.m., followed by screams, then silence. Still, we wanted the thrill. We split into 2 teams. Bartek and Bartek would hide. Olivia and Zosha would seek. The rule was simple. If the seekers touched you, you're out. But if you made it back to the basement storage room, our safe zone, you were clear. We had 10 minutes to hide. Bartek and Marta bolted toward the stairwell. I ducked out through a hallway leading to the upper floors. I had a stupid idea. I was going to hide in Unit 13. The door was unlocked, barely ajar. I gave it a gentle push. It opened with a soft groan like something sighing after a long sleep. Inside it was still. Dust floated like snow in the air. The living room was stripped bare, the wallpaper curled like old skin. But the air, it felt wet, like breathing through wool soaked in cold tea. I slipped inside, careful not to make noise, and ducked into what looked like the child's room. Pink paint peeling, stickers half ripped from the wall. I crouched behind an old bookshelf that had been left behind, now lying on its side. Perfect. Minutes passed. I waited, my pulse slowing. I could hear the faint giggle of Zosha echoing somewhere downstairs. Then silence again. Just me in the room, and the faintest creak of old wood. That's when I looked up. Across from me, against the far wall, stood a tall, cracked mirror. For a moment, I saw my own reflection. And something else. A figure. A girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, was standing in the doorway behind me. She was pale, hair dripping wet, wearing a tattered ballet costume. Her feet hovered just above the floor. I spun around. No one was there. When I looked back at the mirror, she was gone. My skin turned to ice. I heard faint breathing, not mine, and something that sounded like whispered counting. 8, 9, 10. I backed up toward the hallway, careful not to make a sound, heart thundering in my ears. I crept out of the room and down the hall toward the door. But before I could reach it, bang! The door slammed shut. Hard. It was like the whole apartment shook. I yanked on the handle. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me. Then I heard footsteps. Not coming from behind me, but above. From the ceiling. Thud. Drag. Thud. Drag. Like someone, or something, crawling upside down just above me. The light bulb in the hallway flickered once, twice, then burst. I bolted back toward the bedroom, the only space that felt vaguely familiar. As I passed the living room, I caught a glimpse through the broken window. Bartek was standing across the courtyard. He was staring up, directly at me. I waved both arms, trying to scream, but no sound came out. He didn't move. Then I noticed something. Bartek wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my gut. There, at the end of the hall, was the girl again. This time she was closer. Her mouth stretched in a broken smile, head twitching slightly to the side, arms limp at her sides. She began stepping forward. Every light she passed flickered and died. I slammed the bedroom door shut and threw a collapsed mattress in front of it. My body shook so violently I could barely stay upright. Then, just above me, I heard soft singing. Round and round the shadows play. Hide from her, or she will stay. The voice came from inside the closet. I wanted to die, or disappear. Anything but open that door. But I had to know. I crept to the closet and slowly pulled it open. Nothing, except for a child's drawing taped inside the door. A family of 3. Stick figures. One had red X's over its eyes. The other 2 smiled. I didn't wait. I grabbed the closet rod like a bat, shoved the door open, and charged toward the apartment door again. This time it opened. I flew down the stairs like a demon was on my heels. When I reached the lobby, I saw all the others standing there, faces pale. What happened? I gasped. Bartek looked shaken. You were in the window, he said. Yeah, I replied. I saw you. No. His voice dropped to a whisper. I saw you waving, but you weren't alone. There was a girl behind you. She was smiling, but she didn't have eyes. We haven't played Shadow Rush since that night, and Unit 13 has been sealed shut. I still live in Tower B, and sometimes, when the wind is just right, I swear I hear soft footsteps in the hallway. And at night, I don't look up at the 7th floor windows. Not anymore. Please like the video, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share.